It's been a little bit more than 2 years since I uploaded my first video here, and a little bit more since I've created my Beginnings and Paths channel. So, to celebrate this second anniversary, I made a video with all my travels and my videos from this second year. Let's jump on that time machine. Last spring, I started this second year while being in Austria, where I visited several places, the first of them being the beautiful town of Melk. I liked very much its calm ambience and cozy streets, where you can find nice restaurants, cafes and even a tiny distillery. Although it is a modern town, it still keeps something of the past times. The main gem of the town is its majestic Baroque Abbey, renowned even from the medieval times. In fact, it is so renowned that the Abbey of Melk made its way, although indirectly, even in the famous Umberto Eco's novel The Name of the Rose. A couple of days later, I visited another town in Lower Austria, namely Krems an der Donau. As its name suggests, it is situated on the banks of Danube River, just as Melk, and has the same marvelous combination of old times and modernity. The newer part of the town has quite everything one could need: museums, sport facilities, beautiful parks, even a hospital university, while through the medieval Steiner Tor, one of the gates of the old town, you access a world of impressive old houses, cobblestone lanes and legends I talked about in my original video from Krems an der Donau. In the spring of last year, I also jumped to Klosterneuburg, although it wasn't a real travel because the town is very close to Vienna. In fact, for around 20 years in the first half of the 20th century, it was a district of the Austrian capital before regaining its status of an independent town. The major landmark here is also its large Augustinian abbey, but as all the other towns in the vicinity, Klosterneuburg is renowned for its vineyards and the wine produced here. Although the weather was cloudy and a bit chilly, I enjoyed the walk in the courtyard of the abbey and the town itself. The next video I made was about my visit to the town of Baden. Renowned for the mineral springs here and for being a resort for centuries for the Austrian imperial court, as for the regular Viennese, they call it the Biedermeier town because of the many houses built in this architectural style. The fame of Baden is also due to the fact that here lived in different periods some great composers as Mozart, Strauss and Beethoven. I was enchanted by its tiny backyard streets, by this rosarium, although it wasn't the right season and the roses weren't blooming yet, and the cozy shops on the main street. A little bit later that last spring, I also traveled in the southern parts of Czech Republic, more precisely in South Bohemia. Along the way of my trip to Lipno, where I was about to stay for several days, I stopped to visit the 820-year-old Cistercian Abbey in the town of Vyšší Brod. Although big enough, it couldn't compare to the fullest with the ones in Melk and Klosterneuburg, mainly because of the communist past of the country when the monastery was abolished and turned by the back then socialist government into an army barracks and a garrison. Later, in the 1990s, after the political changes, the monastery was restored and is undergoing some renovations. The first city I visited in Bohemia was České Budějovice, the city of history and beer. The thing is, being close to Austria, the German name of České Budějovice is Budweiser. Now you know where this renowned beer was brewed for the first time. But for me, it was more important to try to capture the spirit of this 10 centuries old city. Although it is bigger than the towns I visited and filmed in my second year on YouTube, the city seemed to be very calm and peaceful, with its own specific charm emanating from the old houses in the streets, the cathedral and the buildings on the main square. I climbed the 16th century tower and the view from the top was amazing. On the second day of my travel in South Bohemia, I visited the medieval town of Český Krumlov, which is renowned to keep the oldest castle in Central Europe, although some say the biggest is the Malbork castle in Poland. Anyway, by saying this town is medieval, I really mean it. Most of the houses you'll find here are built in late medieval times and still bring today that ambience, although being a really touristic town, it has been carefully modernized, so you can find here plenty of souvenir shops, cafes and restaurants, and of course the castle. It is really huge and the view from the walls is amazing. On my final day in Czech Republic, I shot a video about Lipno, where I stayed for the night while traveling in South Bohemia. It is a great four-year resort situated on a lake that turned to be a reservoir and, in the same time, on the slopes of a mountain. So it gives the opportunity for water sports in the summer, for skiing in winter and hiking in spring and autumn. There is some chairlift as this top tree trail in the woods. It hides many interesting discoveries for the kids as information about the wildlife in the area. As for the resort itself, it has some colorful houses that are part of different hotels, of course plenty of recreational places, bars, restaurants as a pier with plenty of boats. The next video I uploaded here, I shot it in Bulgaria, more precisely from the town of Pernik and the annual masquerade festival Surva that keeps some Bulgarian folklore traditions from the pagan times. Of course, no one is taking them seriously, but the festival is a way to keep the cultural heritage. Starting with an opening ceremony, it spreads over the course of 3 days where folkloric troops from the entire country in traditional costumes present them in a sort of parade. I traveled to Pernik for the 3 days of the festival just to be able to show it to you, something that could be interesting and rare to see. The Golden Bridges, the place where it all started for me. Then the first signs of the summer appeared and I took the opportunity to go in Vitosha mountain, where the whole idea for this channel came to me. In the beginning I started with just walking tours in the mountain trails, then with walks along the streets of different places I was visiting, but finally that started to be a little boring to me, and with this video from the Golden Bridges area I decided to change the course of my channel through putting myself more in front of the camera, kind of vlogging, to tell you a bit more about the places where I'm going and what I'm about to do there. Let's go on a hunt for some hiking gear. As I was planning to go more regularly in the mountains for hiking in nature, I needed some gear. Not having the time for that for years, I was lacking even the basic gear. And it's not fun to be in the mountains in city clothes. So I had to buy some, at least the basic stuff, and decided to make a vlog about it. Even more, I had no one among friends and family to give me some advice. That's why I asked you back then in this video, would you trust a stranger for hiking gear advice? Anyway, everything turned great and I equipped myself at least with the basic things. Meanwhile, the summer has taken over and the days became hotter. In June, I found the Bulgarian Railways organize a retro trip with a big old steam locomotive. Being a train lover, as of the real ones, as of the miniatures and models, I couldn't miss the opportunity to see it, take the trip with it, and of course to show it to you. I didn't enter in the technical details about the locomotive. It could not be interesting to you, but it was a great experience. Even more, on that trip were exhibited two old carriages from the beginning of the 20th century. And just after this amazing steam locomotive trip, I traveled to Kazanluk, a town on the central part of the country, just south of the Balkan mountain chain, for the Festival of Roses. The town is situated in the Valley of Roses, renowned even from the early 19th century for the production of the purest rose oil, used all around the world by the entire cosmetic industry. That's the reason for this Festival of Roses to exist. I enjoyed Kazanluk, a serene town without too much big buildings. I managed to make a video about both the festival itself and the Rosarium, a park with different types of roses, which also houses the Museum of Roses. Since summer was in full swing, I didn't really feel like staying at home as the weather was perfect for traveling and outdoor adventures. And what a better time than summer for a trip to the sea coast and have a bit of fun on the beach. So I first traveled to the village of Lozenets on the Black Sea coast, where I could enjoy the fine sand, the warm sea and some bars. Although the village isn't too big, it was nice to wander on the town streets and to enjoy the hotels, the restaurants and the nightlife. And while Lozenets was more like a party village, the town of Ahtopol, the second place on the sea coast I visited last year, had more interesting historical landmarks, so I couldn't miss the opportunity to show and to tell you a bit about its rich past through the centuries, while in the same time enjoying the view of the cliffs in the sea. I was amazed by the fact it revealed to be several millennia old, as by the tragic story about the earthquake that destroyed the town in 16th century, the ruined huge walls, while in the same time I admired the several old wooden houses that survived to this day. While I roamed along the sea, I didn't realize how and when the summer passed. I had to return back to Sofia for some time, but I couldn't miss all the beautiful colors on the trees, so I hit the road again, this time to Sapareva Banya. I choose this town because I heard there is the hottest geyser in continental Europe. Not the biggest, but the hottest, with 103 degrees Celsius. Besides that, there were also some interesting landmarks to discover related to the history of the town. Well, I wasn't impressed by the geyser itself. I expected it to be more natural, while it was captured in some sort of fountain. Anyway, as many other towns in the country with mineral water springs, Sapareva Banya is a very good spa resort. While being there, I explored the area of the town. I went for a hike in the lower parts of Rila mountain to enjoy the beauty of the autumn colors in the forest. I heard there was a waterfall, namely Goritsa waterfall. At the beginning of the trail, I found some interesting wild pool for washing big carpets and heavy blankets, but I was impatient to reach the waterfall. The entire area all around were picturesque and the waterfall was magnificent, although you can admire it only from this wooden platform. Being in the area, I also visited the beautiful Vltavou monastery, which was enchanting by its calm and look, which is very different than the Abbeys in Melk or Klosterneuburg in Austria or the Vyšší Brod in Czechia, but it has its own charm. Several days later, I shoot a video about a hike in the southern part of Vitosha mountain near Sofia to enjoy the good weather we had in autumn and to take a look of Selimitsa Hut, one of the many huts in this mountain, as to reach a bit higher, a spot with a great view friends told me about. The trail was crossing many creeks, small wooden bridges as some stone rivers, and I discovered another tiny monastery. It was in a process of refurbishment, although the miniature church was beautiful. I took a glimpse on it before continuing to the hut, which was pretty good, well maintained and had a restaurant with a terrace. I didn't spend too much time there and continued to the area I wanted to reach. It wasn't too far anymore and the place was really nice. The next video I shot was also on a hike, this time in Liulin mountain, where both mountains, Liulin and Vitosha, are divided. I never knew in the vicinity of Sofia there are so many small monasteries and chapels, but this is the beauty of hiking and traveling. You never know what you'll discover. This one was named after Saints Cyril and Methodius, while the entire area is called Bonsovi Poliani, as the hut I reached a little bit later on the trail. Continuing on the trail over the hut, I reached a meadow from where I could enjoy a nice view over parts of the city, as to some of the peaks of the nearby Vitosha mountain. Late October, I took another hike in the Liulin mountain to Devotinsky Monastery, St. Trinity. To reach it, I had to start the hike from the town of Bansko near Sofia. I expected there will be a trail while I had to walk on a narrow asphalt road. At first, I felt a little bit disappointed by that fact, but soon enough, I found it to be a very pleasant, calm, bucolic road with no cars on it and with charming scenery along it. Reaching the cloister, I found it was a very beautiful, well-maintained and with the specific architecture for these monasteries. Autumn was already passing and winter was on its way, but the weather was still warm and sunny. So somewhere in late November I went to visit and to shoot some videos on a place I've been long time ago, and it was the town of Bansko. I choose that because this town is very specific and interesting from an historical and architectural standpoint. I knew it was an old village that grew in a town and a resort, but I was impressed by how many hotels there were. Anyway, the old part of the town still had its own ambience with the really narrow cobblestone streets and its specific stone houses you won't be able to see anywhere else. I even made a good old walking tour along the streets in the evening. Another place I visited near Bansko was the village of Dobursko. Not so impressive per se, but there is a landmark worth to be visited, the old church built in the Middle Ages. The thing is, you can find frescoes from the medieval times, which are very unusual for those times. One of the frescoes is really interesting by depicting Christ in something that strangely reminds of a rocket. Such depiction can't be seen anywhere else and is not known why the painter did this. After visiting the church, I took a short, I wouldn't call it a hike, but rather just a stroll on the hills over Dobursko to enjoy the view. The next day I went in Pirin mountain, where Bansko is situated, to visit Bezbog Hut and the lake near it. I couldn't miss the opportunity to get a good hike in this mountain and to enjoy its beauty. Although the different mountains in Bulgaria are very close to one another, they all have their own specific feel. To reach this hut, you have to take a chairlift that turned out to be really long with plenty of great views to admire, and when I reached the hut and the lake, it was already afternoon. The entire area was so fresh and pristine that I understood why it was called Bezbog, namely without gold. And I slightly regretted I spent so much time in the lower parts of the mountain. It was incredible and I didn't want to leave this place, but with the short days I had to return back down. With the next video I couldn't miss the opportunity to show you the oldest tree in Bulgaria, Bejkušovata Mura, which is a 1300 years old pine tree. Unfortunately, the screen can't show to the fullest how huge it is. I saw it on the road to another hut in Pirin mountain, the Vihren Hut, situated near the tallest peak in the mountain, Vihren. From there, as many other people that day, I took a hike to the eye lake in the vicinity. Although the weather started to worsen that day, I managed to reach it and to take some time to enjoy its pure waters and the entire area. Then came the holidays, and sometimes later, somewhere in January, I managed to free myself for a trip to Hisarya, another town with a rich historical past dating back to the late 1st century and even before. Although today it's a spa resort, the mineral springs there were renowned even in the ancient Roman times when, in the 2nd century, Imperator Diocletianus built here large Roman baths, thus turning the town into a relatively important place of the empire. They were excavated and exposed to visitors several decades ago, although there are parts which are still underground. There was also a big Roman tomb from the 3rd century, as, of course, the big walls that stand still even today. The last video of my 2nd year on YouTube was from an equestrian center where I took my first lesson on horse riding. I never did that before and I was curious to find what it is to get on a horse. The Trkiec Equestrian Center has a large arena for competitions and there were several people training there that obviously were good at riding. It wasn't so bad for an absolute beginner as me. I even took a visit of the stables to see by myself what it looks like from inside, and I thought about the importance of trying new things in life that will create our future memories. Well, this was my 2nd year here on YouTube. I hope you liked it. Of course, you can watch all the videos full length on my channel. Thank you for being with me through this entire time and for your support. I appreciate, I'm grateful. And I'll see you in the next video.